wing panels underneath. And first I thought, what could that be that is that big and flying so low? And I actually didn't even know until they landed in the long grass, and then they started calling, and I immediately identified them from the call. Went, hornbills, southern ground hornbills. It had been a while since I'd seen them as well. But graceful flyers for such big birds too. Now, Michelle, you're wondering how many different types of hornbills do we get? Well, this one, which is the rarest of them all, the southern ground hornbill, and my particular favorite. So we've got one, and then you get the southern yellow-billed hornbill, then you get the red-billed hornbill. So that's 3. Then you also get the African grey hornbill. That's 4. Occasionally we see the trumpeted, but we'll count them because they are possible. That's 5. And then the last one, the crowned hornbill, which also very rare up here in the northern sector of the Sabi Sands, but it's not impossible to see. We saw crowned hornbills and a lot of trumpeters down in the southern sector of the sands, but again, they're predominantly fruit eaters, the crowned and the trumpeters. So there are lots and lots of massive fig trees down on the big riverbeds, and obviously providing lots and lots of food. Whereas the yellow-billed and the African grey and the red-billed hornbill, they're predominantly feeding on insects. And then, of course, these ones that we're looking at now, they feed on a variety of different things. Like I said, they scavenge off carcasses. They are efficient hunters. They move around on the ground when they're hunting rather than flying and catching their prey. They'll eat snakes. They'll eat the mice. The chameleons, I've seen them eating many, many times, which is amazing as to how they see them during the day as well. Just shows you how superior their eyesight is compared to ours, that they're able to spot a chameleon moving on a leaf during the day, which is super impressive. And quite happily just preening themselves. This is really quite lovely. Blue sky, the clouds have all melted away, the fog has definitely left us, and it is heating up quite a bit. Michael, you're wondering if this is a breeding pair. I think it could be. I actually think this might be the dominant breeding pair of the sort of family that we're seeing. Because the other two just didn't look quite as big. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me. These two seem to be sort of fatter. They look very, very healthy. They just look more dominant. But it's difficult to tell. They're separated. They're not down on the ground. And so it is a hard one to sort of guess. And it's a pity that they don't have a chick either. It would have been nice to have seen a juvenile. When I was down guiding down in the southern sector of the sands, there was a family of 5, and we actually watched this chick grow. It was quite amazing, and we'd almost see it every day, this family, because you just stop when you get to the northern sector of the reserve. You'd sit quietly and you'd listen for the squawking, the whining of the young hornbill. They don't keep quiet. They're constantly nagging the adults, saying, I'm hungry, I'm hungry, and hungry, just encouraging them to keep looking for food. And then every now and then you'll see the adults will gobble up a little beetle for themselves because they need to eat first. And then when they find a big, delicious treat, I always find that they give the best snacks. They'll call the young chicken and come racing in and then come and feast about. But that was nice to see them. It's good. I haven't seen them for months now. Months and months and months. Haven't even been hearing them. Praveep, you're wondering if the hornbills are migratory. No, these particular ones aren't. They hang around here all year round. And you get them throughout Africa. Unfortunately, there are not too many of them left anymore. But they definitely are around. And we tend to see them quite a lot here. In the Lower Zambezi National Park, they were everywhere. We were very, very fortunate to see so many around there, sitting in the big anna trees, the Phaederbia albidea trees, which were beautiful. And then down here, at one point, my goodness, David, remember, for about 3 or 4 weeks, every single morning, every single night, we were seeing hornbills. It was really special. It was quite beautiful. It was just as I started working here. But they do move around. So they walk quite large distances. But they also, like the rest of the animals, they are creatures of habit. And, oh my goodness, David, I think I've just seen, hang on. I think I've just seen a laughing dove. I think I found another nest. Sorry, David. So just down here, I've just watched a dove pick up a piece of grass and then come flying into the spike thorn. There's a nest. Look, David. Look. They were there. Sorry, birdies. Now, go down a little bit. That tree to the left. Yeah, right. And go. No, this one right here that you're looking at that's unfocused. Okay, go down. There we go. Go zoom in right there in the middle. Look at that. Those were laughing doves creating a nest. Look at that. They're just starting out now. With the base, you can see there's a bit of wattle that they've got there. They look like they've picked off some bark, and then they're also adding bits and pieces of grass. They'll probably use a lot of Panica maximum, because that's all about at the moment, and it's nice and soft, creating much padding. Right, let's not stay here let's let these birds continue with their morning, building their nest, but that's great to see that there's still a couple of love couples out there. And I'm going to send you back across to Djuma with Stef, who seems to be beating flies.
So 2 rare things in one game drive, hey? So you got the ground hornbills with Taylor and Shadow with Tristan, and now we've got another rare thing, although not as animated. This is a flower I've never seen before, and isn't the most spectacular sight. I always like to look at flowers like this, especially these complex flowers, to ask myself the question, what is it trying to entice, and how does it spread its pollen? Because that's all a flower is. It's an enticement for an insect. And you can see here, it has those deep pink landing pads, and you probably find that because this plant is orientated with those landing pads facing the sky, that they fluoresce under UV light or under infrared, depending on what this plant specific insect can see. And then as the insect comes in to land on the landing pad and stick its proboscis into the flower's neck for the nectar, it then gets dusted with the pollen organelle here at the tip of my finger, those funny spiky things. So it would dust the top and the back of the particular insect. Probably a bee, and you can see the bee would come hovering in here, come down to the side, and then be touched. There we go. You can see how it touches the just really complex thing, this flower. And it's growing in one of the most active seep lines that I've seen actually this year, to be honest with you. And we're not the only people that think it's active, but have a look at how the elephant have dug up this particular seep. So elephant would dig up where the water is coming out of the ground, and they'd started obviously by digging for roots in a seep line. That's where they're going to find the most water, and that would have been done this dry season. But just let's walk through this area here where elephant must have been coming here for pretty much the whole summertime. And you can see where dried mud puddles have been pushed out, and everywhere you look there's just no grass. It's been trampled completely by the elephant. And lying down, they dug here a little bit, and you can still see some water. That's where the water is coming out. That's the actual seep, very close to the ground. And then the most active part of this whole thing is right here. This is the head of the seep. So this hasn't got as much water in it as it does further down, but you can just see the extent of this mud wallow. And it's been used for a while. I think it just recently dried up, and the reason why I'm saying that is come and have a look at this rubbing post. Not only has this tree been sprayed with mud from elephant flicking mud across themselves, you can see it's been absolutely plastered by mud. That's elephant flicking the mud with their trunks. But it was used probably by warthog and by other animals as a rubbing post. Come and have a look at how shiny this portion of the tree is. Isn't that nice? Mud is still fresh, actually. You can see how it's dirtied my hands. Wow. I like these types of things. And I found a beautiful feather as well. Look at this. That is from probably an oriole, judging from the color, a black-headed oriole. Or it could be from any number of yellow birds, I suppose. So what else has feathers like this? The bushshrike, orange-breasted and grey-headed bushshrike, canaries. Now, Nancy, you hit the nail right on the head with this observation. You said, would this be the beginnings of a pan? Yes, Nancy, that is exactly what this is. This is the beginnings of a pan. Chele pan, for instance, a pan that we quite often go past, not only on foot but also on the vehicles, is a pan that would have started exactly like this. At the head of a seep line, where the elephants have dug down, right down to the water table. Them bathing here would plaster the seep with a lot of clay that they bring in on their skins, and eventually that clay will settle on the bottom of the pan, and while the water seeps in, it won't be able to seep out because of this waterproof layer of clay basically at the bottom. And yes, it'll then hold water, and the deeper down it goes, the longer it will hold water for. And so this area will, in years to come, who knows, decades maybe, 100 years, 200 years, I'm not sure how long pans take to form, but eventually this will be something very similar to Chele pan. I quite enjoy that. I wonder what this is. There's an elephant track. Could it be the tusk of that elephant? So there's an elephant track that I'm standing in right here. And quite often elephant will kneel down in pans like this and put their head into the mud for whatever reason. And that just looks, it's such a weird track that. Just one footprint of the elephant. The other footprint must have been at the top there where you're standing at the moment. Oh, it's stinky here. This elephant had a massive wee when he finished over here as well. It really is pongy, like there's a huge urea smell inside there. Definitely a little bit better out here. It's overpowering. Alright, let's carry on over here and go and see what other ruination these elephants have done. You can actually see that this seep has moved over the years. Let's go to an old one. This is a new one. Here was maybe not last year, the seeps were inactive last year, so this would have been from the year before, and because it's older, we have a pan that has still retaining some water. So this, because this particular seep is older, here we have one that is still retaining some water. I don't think it'll retain water for very long. I think the first time a rhino or a hippo or an elephant or a buffalo comes and baths in this particular pan, this water will disappear. But have a look, same thing, just this absolute wasteland where the elephant have been digging up the grass and just walking over it over and over and over again. Coupled with the fact that seep lines are very harsh places for plants to grow, they're just too waterlogged. And it's not wet enough for sedges and for water plants, aquatic plants to grow, but it's too wet for the drier bushveld plants to grow, and so you only really get two species. You get this, the Waltheria indica, this plant here, and then you get the grass, the Eragrostis gummiflua, which is this grass here, one of my favorite grass, the gum grass. So these are the only plants that can really grow to any degree, holding the soil together, at least anyway. In this area, on these seep line areas. And as you go downhill, down slope, you start to get guaris that we make our fly swatters from. This is a guari tree here. You start to get tambutis, which is this tree there. You start to get leadwoods, which is that tree and that big tree there. And then, of course, you start to get riverine trees, which is the jackalberries and the weeping boar beads and the sausage pods and all those sort of fantastic trees. All right, we haven't found any track of a leopard here. We're still searching for it. And I suppose we'll keep you updated as soon as we do find any sign, or hopefully you find any sign of Karula. In the meantime, you off to Taylor, who's managed to find you a giraffe.
Look at how beautiful this is. Now it's a little bit bumpy. I'm trying to go as slow as I can. But we've got a beautiful, beautiful giraffe bull walking alongside us in the long grass, which I think is absolutely lovely. And is a shot that we don't often get to see. So we're just going to try and keep it up while we drive along. A couple of oxpeckers running down his long neck to his rear end, where I'm sure that they are, well, the ticks are plentiful. Isn't this stunning? Oh my gosh, Giraffe, you're going too slowly. Oh, he's stopping. There he is. How stunning is this giraffe? Now, he is a big boy. I think he's come from the Kruger. He is dark. He's almost completely black. And he's actually the most beautiful looking giraffe because the undercoat, besides the dark patches, are actually quite light. They're almost white. Can you see that? Which is something that we don't often see on giraffe. Normally, if they've got that sort of yellow tinge to them, that tawny tinge, but not this boy. Oh, he's beautiful. Let me try and get up in front of him again before he disappears in the long grass. But you can see how long that the grass is, the way that almost his knees are covered. We'll just jump up ahead again. Hello, boy. And he's so relaxed with us, too. He doesn't actually mind us at all. And starting to hear the oxpeckers chirping now, too. Hello, boy. I think he's actually going to cross the road. There we go. Look at this. Look at those lovely long legs. He's actually got clean legs. He doesn't have too many cuts and gashes, which you typically see from an old bull. He's definitely in the prime of his life. Maybe he's just so good at battling, he avoids injury. You never know. Massive ossicones again. He's one of the prettier male giraffe I've ever seen. Normally, you look at them, like I said, they've scarred up, they've got gashes all over them, they've got massive cuts. You can see he does have a slight cut on his head, but it's an old injury that's healing. But just in terms of his face, he doesn't seem to have as much of that calcification of all that bone that starts to develop over their heads, and that normally helps protect the sensitive areas. And their heads can be almost 10 kilograms heavier after 7 years. Can you believe that? Just from calcification of bone. And that's specifically for the male giraffe, not with the females. Right, let's keep up with him. Now, green eyes, I mean, you're hopefully going to get a better view now. We'll actually be able to see his color quite nicely because we've gone from looking at him in the sun to now we've got the sun on our side and shining on him quite nicely. I'll just try and sneak over us and give him a bit of room so we don't encourage him to move anymore. Now, green eyes, you've asked how do you age a giraffe. Let me go up a little bit further and get a view from the other side. In practice and just sort of experience at looking at giraffe, it can be quite tough. And I'll just get a nice position over here. How's that, Darby? Oh, there we go. Hello, big boy. So, this particular giraffe, just maybe because he doesn't have so many scars, I wouldn't put him as an old bull. I think he's just coming into the prime of his life. So I would guess that he's maybe between 12 and 15 years old, somewhere around there. He still can put on a bit of muscle around his neck and his shoulders. Typically, they're quite bulging when they are big, dominant bulls. And look at his coloration. It's absolutely stunning. Now, with younger giraffe, it's tough. For the first 6 months of a giraffe's life, you'll see that their ossicones, those little things that are probing up from the top of his skull, they're actually not solid for the first 6 months of their life. They eventually will fuse to the base of the skull. And you can look for something along those lines. And as the bulls start to age, when they're getting towards 10, you'll see that the hair around the ossicones at the top also starts to wear away. And then you just sort of have to guess. It's the same thing as if you were to say, look at a horse or a dog or a cat. You know, is there grey hair coming through? Because you definitely see the white hairs coming through on older animals. We see it all the time. Scars and injuries are often an indication of older animals too. Though younger ones can get bullied and bossed around, which can end in a few scrapes and scars, in just size. I mean, a male giraffe can stand at almost 5.5 meters tall, which is massive, and a female just less than that, about between 4 and 4.5 meters tall. You can also gauge that. I don't think he'll get much taller, but he definitely is going to put on a bit more muscle. And I think this is the first time I've ever seen a giraffe on Cheetah Plains, and especially out in the open, which is lovely. Now, I was hoping we were also going to see some buffalo. There's lots of buffalo tracks, so perhaps we'll go scouting around to have a look. Tristan is still with the lions. Let's go across to Arathusa and have another look.
We are indeed. They've been giving us the runaround a little bit. They went through this horrible drainage line that we couldn't cross, so we had to go all the way around, and we've only just gotten back to them again after sort of 15 minutes of driving. So it's not easy where they are now. They're busy walking along this undulating terrain on the edge of a little drainage area, and so it's quite difficult to actually keep up with them. Now we've got one lioness that's here, there's another lioness that's a little bit in front of us, and all the cubs are just on the other side as well. So they're quite spread out at the moment, and I think that they're looking around for something. They've definitely picked up the scent or smell or heard something, because they keep looking into the same direction and keep staring with quite a bit of intent. And they haven't settled this morning. It's already quite warm, but they're still not settled. They're getting up and moving. So I don't know if maybe they've spotted something and they're now on the lookout for food. Like I say, that impala, between the 9 of them, was not really a very big meal. But you can see how in this area it is really suited to these lions moving around. Look at how long the grass is. So now she's walking out in the open a little bit, but you'll see she starts to go into a little thicker area and they just disappear completely. It becomes really tough to see them. Also, the coloration of the grass, when these lions lie flat, it is a perfect place for them to ambush. So if they've spotted something that they potentially want to hunt, it would be quite interesting to see what it is. I know we did see some nyala a little bit earlier when we were driving back towards these lions, so I wonder if that's not maybe what they've heard. Here comes one of the other lionesses. Now, I'm sure the cubs will all start filtering in one after another, because they were with that third lioness that joined. That's who they were with, and so I'm sure they're going to start making an appearance. Mary, all 6 are here as far as I've seen. I will have to count again just to make 100% sure. It's obviously quite difficult with this grass that we're in, as they kind of move around, and difficult to keep track of all of them. But as far as I know, all 6 are here. Just now when they were lying down together, I think I counted 6, but I will check just to make sure. You can see all the 3 females are there together now, so I'm sure the cubs are going to come slowly. I can actually see the cubs are starting to come from the right, so they're not going to be visible just yet, but they'll come shortly. But they look very unsettled. I think they're in 2 minds, whether to be sleeping or whether to go and pursue whatever they've heard up in the distance. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if a buffalo just appeared somewhere in front here? That would be quite something. Although I think with just the 3 females, and in the condition that the buffalo are in currently, I think they'll try and probably avoid hunting buffalo. And just the 3 of them is not going to be strong enough to be able to bring down these healthy buffalo that we have at the moment. If all 5 were here, then maybe, and if there was a Birmingham boy present, then most definitely. But I reckon that there's not enough of them to start tackling big buffalo bulls. But you never know. Lions can surprise you. I'm going to try to do my best at not hitting any stumps as we go through this long grass. A few stumps here and there that we have to negotiate, though. Where did those cubs go? I know the cubs were here on my right hand side, so I just want to be a little bit careful about where I go. Looks like we've decided to settle in the shade after all. So we're going to just position ourselves so that we can see them. See, this lioness to the side here. She is staring back and waiting for them to come. Aaron, well, this is a good question, because lions are a little bit different than some of the other animals. He's asking whether the females care for all the cubs or just their own. Well, they care for all of them. So what you'll find is that they will have preference towards their own cubs, so they'll make sure their own cubs are fed first and have milk and are looked after, but they will help out with the mothering of the others too. So they do allosuckle, which means that they will allow the cubs to suckle from their different mothers or from themselves if they are not the mother, and then they will also help in protecting those cubs. So let's say something like a hyena had to run in now, all three females will attack that hyena and try and look after their cubs as best as possible. So they definitely do help out. When it comes to mothering, they all look after each other's. But they definitely do show preference to their own cubs. So in a situation where all the cubs are together, then you'll find that the females will be a lot more tolerant of their own. So they'll allow their own cubs to climb all over them and to mess around. Whereas with the other females' cubs, they'll be a little bit more grumpy and chase them away. But they definitely will help in the protection of those little ones, as well as even providing nutrients for them. Right, so these guys seem to be settling down a little bit. I'm just going to stick around with them for a while and see where they go. And while we do that, I believe Taylor's found their favorite food item. So let's go across and see what it is.
Lots here, actually. That monotonous lark, the turtle dove. I want to just see before.
Right, so sorry about that. Taylor, unfortunately, has got no comms, so he's going to stay with the lions, and you can see the little cubs have appeared as well. So they've come out and are making their way towards moms and coming to see what's going on. And I suppose I can't really call them cubs these days. They're getting so big, little sub-adults would be probably almost the term that we would use for them, although they are still have those kind of cubbish appearance with the big ears and big paws. They haven't quite grown into all of that just yet. How many have we counted there so far, Viam? That's 3, 4, 5 that we've got so far. Is that right? 6. There we go. So all 6 are here. And there's the little one at the back. So that's good news that all 6 are still around. They're doing really well. They're looking healthy, especially the older ones. They're really not showing any more signs of that mange that we were seeing around the winter periods. They're mostly clean of it, except the youngest one. The youngest one's still got a bit of scarring around the leg areas and looks a little bit tatty in places. You hear them talking to one another. So they're making those soft little cub sounds as they greet the females who are lying in the shade. So you can see the little one. There we go. Look at that. A little greeting just to say hello. Got to be respectful towards mom or aunt, depending on who she is. You can see the little cubs are quite clever. They know where the best shade is, so they've completely gone past the first female because she's lying in not the best shade that there is, and they've all gone to the other female who's positioned herself far better, and they've all taken up a nice little bit of shade for themselves. And look, she's growling now because they're all lying all over her. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? You can see she's just showing her teeth a little bit, and a little bit of a lashing out, and that's to say, enough, I don't want to be dealing with you lot right now. I'm not in the mood. You've been far too boisterous this morning, so I'm going to show that I'm not happy. And look at those eyes. As they say, if looks could kill, that's one of those stares that she's got. But as soon as all the little cubs settle down, you'll find that so will she, and the tail will stop flicking, and her growling will stop, and she'll probably start to fall asleep again. Look at that. You can see how much bonding does take place amongst the pride. They all flop down on one another and they rub up on one another. And it's just to reaffirm those bonds and to keep that pride bond very, very strong. Right, so Miss McCurdy has got her comms back, so let's go across to her and see what the Nkuhuma's favorite food item is.
This is indeed, well, it used to be their favorite food. We haven't seen them feasting on a buffalo for quite some time now. but we found a big herd of buffalo. And just as we left the giraffe, you may remember I said that there were lots of buffalo tracks around here, and I said to David earlier, I was like, oh, I hope we get this herd. It'll be fantastic. But sadly, we've just missed them because they've moved on to Mala Mala, and I reckon we only missed them by a few hours. I think they were moving around quite a bit last night, so they seem to be exhausted. Most of them still laying down and resting, whereas there are a few that have decided that it's about time to start the day. But that's typical for buffalo. They often have a few siestas, normally first thing or just before the sun has risen, you'll see them sleeping in. And because I think it was a bit chilly today, they've decided to stay a little bit seated for a little bit longer. And there's a nice dam close by. They can go and have a couple of drinks of water, eat all the grass, and then by the time 12 o'clock comes, it's siesta time again, and they'll find themselves a nice shady spot. So like I said, not uncommon for these guys to be sitting around and relaxing. But also see, look how they've strategically are sitting in the same spot. Some facing towards us, others looking towards the west, towards the south, towards the north, just keeping each other's backs. And it's very, very important when you are sitting down in a herd, because you're at a disadvantage now. You can't see as far because you're well lower down in the grass. But it's good that you've got different members of a herd facing different directions so that you can hopefully spot a lion coming towards them. Though, it's a pity there are no lions here because it would be a great opportunity for them. The long grass, the very still day and the soft breeze, I think the lions would have a great chance at catching a buffalo. But sadly, no cats for us just yet. This is the biggest herd I think I've seen since I've been here at Wild Earth. There must be about, I guess at about 50, maybe 60 buffalo. Like I said, it is difficult for you to see because they are sitting in the grass. And there are quite a few of them even behind one of the shrubs that is sort of limiting our view at the moment. This herd is made up of many, many different members, from female to males, of course, to little ones to juveniles. Lots of dominant bulls in this herd that they fight amongst each other for mating rights with the females. And that's something also that's quite impressive, is to see two buffalo bulls bashing heads. It's almost like a gunshot when they do clash heads, those massive bosses, which will help protect them. It's like a helmet, really. My goodness, there's a couple of them that are really, they've just decided, no, we're not doing anything. A couple of them are lying completely flat on their sides, which is very risky to go into a deep sleep when you are something like a buffalo high up on the lion's menu. To Mala Mala, perhaps they'll come back this afternoon. You never know with breeding herds. There are lots of lions that linger in Mala Mala, so if they do push further north, these buffalo will just come racing on back to this side, which would be quite nice to perhaps come and have a look at this afternoon. You never know what plans might change in the bush. But this is a small one. I can tell you right now, Mala Mala, this will probably be an average-sized buffalo herd. For down that end and down in the southern sand, sort of south of the Sand River, you start to see massive herds. I kid you not, 800, 500, 1,000, 2,000 buffalo you can quite easily see if you have enough groups joining up together. And hopefully we will start to see that. I don't know if Djuma has got the grazing capacity, though, for a herd of 500 or 600 buffalo to move through. They might definitely pass through, but it's not an area that they'd think about staying. Whereas these beautiful grasslands here, and it's one of the reasons and why buffalo are so important to the ecosystem, is them and elephants are very much responsible for turning long grazing lands into short sort of grasslands for wildebeest and other animals to come and feast upon. And if you get a couple of herds coming through this area, I kid you not, in a few weeks they'll completely decimate all the grass that's around here. But let's keep our fingers crossed. Let's keep hoping that we're going to start seeing massive herds coming through. It'll be very exciting. They're one of my favorite things to see, especially when they all funnel down and head towards a big dam. Can you imagine? Don't you think it would be fantastic if we could have a herd of 300 or 400 buffalo coming down to drink at Vuyatela Dam now with all that water around? That would be so fantastic. They'd roll around in there. They'd have a great time. And then, of course, to see them in quarantine would be quite nice too. I think we're going to start heading home now and see if we can perhaps pick up on anything along the way. though I think we've been quite lucky. But I'm going to send you back across now to Stef, and I'm not sure what creepy crawlies he's got for you, but I have no doubt that it'll be something interesting.
I also don't know what creepy crawlies I've got, but we're not going to be going into that much detail at the moment. Now, you are standing a little bit far away from me at the moment because we're in a very low area, and that means that our signal is intermittent. So I don't want to break up the signal, but what I do want to show you is demonstrate how a dry riverbed actually has water in it. And even though there's no surface water, apparent surface water, you can still get a drop to drink if you know what to look for. The trick is to look for these plants, these very lush plants in shaded areas. You then take your cup or shell or your hand and you scoop out yourself a pool. And I will come to you now. Let me see if I can open it here a little bit so you can see my pool of water. Can you all see that? Can you see my water here? Can you see that? There. So you can see my pool of water here. Have a look at this. So now, you don't just want to drink this water as it comes out. You've got to wait for it to settle a little bit. But while I wait for it to settle, what I want to point out is the fact that the water is flowing. There's a lot of water flowing inside these depressions and inside these riverbeds. You just got to know how to find it. An elephant knows exactly where to find it. Now, in an absolutely wet time of the year like this, the water table is relatively high and pretty uniform across these riverbeds. But in the dry season, the water pulls up just the same as it does when it's terrestrial, when it's on the surface, against rocks and against bends in the river. And believe it or not, elephants in the dry season can actually find that water. They can actually know where that is. They'll then dig, just like I've dug now, and they will then utilize that water to drink from. Now, the best thing to do with this water is obviously to filter it, because there's a lot of little particles of silt and mud and sand and whatnot inside here. If you just wait a little bit, you can actually, the mud and the silt will start to subside, and that's what I'm hoping for now. So what I'm going to do here is just scoop the top of the water and come and bring it over to you so that you can see what I'm talking about. There's easily enough water in there to keep me hydrated for the whole day. There's the water. You could use your sock and some sand to filter it, some grass. It smells muddy. It smells like the water that you'd expect to find in a puddle or a dam. Tastes like water you expect to find in a puddle or a dam. I'd probably flavor that with some flavored or aromatic grass or some osmum of some sort. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Hey? I don't expect there obviously can be bacteria and parasites in that type of water, but because there's no carcasses lying around, that subterranean water is actually quite good. You just got to wait for it to filter out. But you can see now that where I was digging over there, that puddle is filled up almost to the top. And that is where the water table lies at this particular place, for this particular time. Isn't that interesting? And that's where all these plants are getting their water from. Let me see if I can show you how much water. This cup holds a liter of water. So that's 500 mils. 1 liter. 1.5 liters. 2 liters. 2.5 liters. 3 liters. 3.5 liters. 4 liters, 4.5 liters, 5 liters, and 5 liters of water is more than enough to keep you going even on the hottest day over here. And it's non-stop. It's just filling up. It's probably filling up at a rate of probably about 50 to 100 mils of water a minute. I mean, I'd battled to scoop out all this water. Let me try. Almost like a never-ending spring, eh? There we go. I've almost gotten it right to get right to the end. I'm starting to scoop some sand now. But you can see, still water, no sand. Well, there's a little bit of sand right at the end. Amazing, eh? So it's now filling up as fast as I can empty my cup. So easily, within a couple of minutes, I've managed to get enough water to drink. All right, that's me gone. And we're going to send you over to one of my colleagues and catch up with you when we're in a better signal area again.
And along this very windy road we go. Stef, I'm glad that you're staying hydrated on your walk. That's good, and I hope that everyone else is having a sip of the lovely, clean, crystal clear water. I'm actually a little bit jealous. I'd love to have a sip of that. It sounds delicious. As long as it's not from a mud wallow, I'll probably drink it. Right, now we are probably, I'm just trying to think, should we? I think we should go past. Who's on the road? Is that little common Duiker down all the way down there, David? I think we go past 3 in a row, Pan. It is a common Duiker. Hello, who has spotted us, but doesn't seem to be too phased just yet. Not dashing away as they normally do. Hello, big ears. And they always look a bit out of proportion, the common Duiker. This is the second smallest antelope that we see in this area. And the smallest one is, of course, the steenbok. Hello, little guy. Or little girl, sorry. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, got a bit of a spring in your step this morning. Let's see, I'm quite curious as to see what she's up to. Walking down the road, she's walking straight towards us. She's still quite far off. I wonder if she's looking for something. See how she's smelling, being very careful where she puts her feet as to not make too much noise. And those ears are also going crazy, listening out. And it's actually quite interesting. You see it a lot with kudu, nyala, steenbok, Duiker, the animals that tend to live in the thicker vegetation types. Have you noticed when they walk, how they normally only have 3 feet on the ground at once, and one is always sort of foot is off of the ground. And I think that's an amazing adaptation. You see, look how, because they're very jumpy, of course, and they do live in the thicker vegetation. Like I said, they really have to watch where they put their feet. And that's just amazing to see just how cautious she really is. She's very skittish, but she's still coming closer towards us, so maybe she hasn't realized that we're here yet, because this is very unusual. I'm sure she can hear the sound of my voice. You can see she keeps lifting her head up. But she seems to be distracted by many other things this morning. Hello, girl. And she looks like she may have a little common Duiker inside there. Hey, David? She does look quite on the plump side, don't you think? Big belly. It's possible that she is going to give birth, and off she goes again, trundling along the road. Beautiful shiny coats, though. It's not often that we get sightings like this with a common Duiker. Normally it's a quick 2-second view and then they go darting off. But luckily we spotted her from quite a distance. So she obviously feels relatively comfortable whether she knows we are here or not. She has to be able to hear us because I'm not talking softly. I'm just talking in my normal voice, which is shouting for most people. And there she goes. And I'm sure she'll feel a lot more comfortable in that long grass where she is sheltered. You always see when they're out in the open like that, acting a little bit nervous. But very nice. Very, very nice. There were lots of elephants here yesterday. Lots of dung, lots of smell of urine. Mel, now you're wondering where was that antelope's mom? Mel, that's it. That's an adult. Like I said, they're the second smallest antelope that we see here. The steenbok is even tinier than that little thing. Can you believe it? And one of the most adorable things I think I've ever seen out in the bush is a baby, a common duiker. They're absolutely tiny. And normally mom will leave them just sitting off in the grass, very much like what bushbuck like to do with their young. Just sitting on their own, sometimes under a shrub, just waiting patiently. And because they're so petrified to move, I've driven right up next to one, not on purpose. We think we stopped to look at a bird that my tracker had pointed out. And the next minute he'd looked down and he'd seen this thing next to him as well, only a couple of meters away from his seat, up in the front of the vehicle. And it didn't move. It just sat there and held the freeze position, which is what animals will most do as their basic defense mechanism, is just to keep as still as they can and hope that we haven't seen them or a predator hasn't spotted them. We, of course, did see the duiker. It thought we couldn't see it, so we just stayed there for not very long, about a minute, and then we carried on again as to not disturb it, especially something so young. If it goes racing out of the bushes, even a big eagle, a martial eagle, would be able to snatch it up. And we wouldn't want to cause something like that. Okay, we're almost at 3 in a row pans. They're just up ahead. Let's go take a look. It's nice and warm now. Safari Corp, we're wondering if we ever see a blue or red duiker in this area. Sadly not. It's just common up in the sands. However, I'll tell you about the most incredible sighting that I've had of blue duiker. Now, blue duiker, and like the other duiker we've seen, are typically quite solitary. Both male and females have little territories. We're just coming past the dam. We'll do a quick scan to see if there's anything here. And I haven't seen one for a very long time. The last one I saw was actually was alive. It was in Natal. It was quite not too long ago. But the last time I saw one on a game reserve was in the Eastern Cape, where I saw 5 together. I kid you not. I have a photo, an old photo from like an old cell phone many years ago, and it was an unbelievable sighting. I literally, you can see there's not much here, just a couple of doves flying away, not even any terrapins today, bathing on the banks. I did this. Wiped my eyes because I thought that I was seeing something, and then I ran inside to call the other guides to say, come and look what I'm seeing. And they all laughed at me as we were walking down, saying that I was talking nonsense, and then they all saw it too, and their jaws had dropped. Guides that have been in the industry for 10, 15 years saying they've never seen so many. Why they were all together, I have no idea. And they're tiny, the blue duiker. They're really, really small. They're even smaller than steenbok. They've got these big buggy eyes, which is quite nice. So perhaps you can help us out if a couple of you don't know what a blue duiker looks like. Maybe someone can pop it in on the interweb and share the photo, #SafariLive. Maybe you can do this, the red. We've seen the grey, the common duiker, and the blue duiker, just so that you can see the difference as to what they look like. I don't have a book on me right now, and I don't have any signal to search for a picture. But yeah, really special. Dadiel, now you're wondering if a duiker travel in groups or if they're on their own. So just a moment ago I was just chatting about their behavior, and they actually are solitary. So only time you'll really see 2 together is if it's either mom and baby, or if it's a pair gearing up to start mating. So you don't really see them together very often. Like I said, that sighting with a 5 blue duiker was unbelievable, and I don't think I'll ever see anything like that again. And then also, I mean, they live in all different types of habitats. The blue duikers tend to prefer sort of more forested areas, sort of thick covering. They're exceptionally shy. They won't stay out and about for too long, whereas these common duiker, or the grey duiker, they prefer this sort of savanna woodland type feel around here. But we're going to keep on searching. Who knows what we're going to bump into on the way back to Djuma. And off we go back into Tristan's vehicle with our favorite Pride of Lions.
Indeed, our favorite Pride of Lions has decided that is it for the morning. They have found themselves a shady spot, and everybody is now fast asleep. There's only one lioness that has got her head up and is busy just watching around, but otherwise they are all very, very sleepy at this stage, which is about right, given that it is getting very, very hot. So I think what Taylor is going to find is probably a sunburn this morning. It will be quite warm if she had to drive around for any longer. It is very, very hot today. So I think that is it for us with the Nkuhumas. I think we're going to leave them here and let them have a nice rest, and we're going to come back this afternoon and see if they're going to be up and moving and maybe doing a bit of hunting. So we're definitely going to try and come back this way later. But it was a very pleasant morning with them. They were quite delightful at times. They were up on a termite mound at one point, and saw a little bit of grooming when we first arrived in that beautiful sun. It means that we had quite a good morning with them. So I think let's carry on. Like I say, it is very, very warm, so I don't think that they're going to be doing too much more this morning. Thank you, girls. I mean, just to try and negotiate our way out of here. It's not the friendliest area that we're in. It's very, very thick bush and very dense, long grass, so it's been quite difficult actually following them. Had to take it a lot slower than we normally would, and you can see when we're driving now, the grass doesn't look like it's that long, but it hides all the little stumps and little holes in the ground that you end up falling into and your tires go into, so it is a little bit tough to negotiate, but well worth it, that's for sure. Now, I wonder where the other two females are. I'm sure they must be somewhere around. I haven't seen anybody or heard anybody calling in any signs of them. Sorry, I just wanted to check there wasn't a big hole. So I don't know where these other two females are. I think they must be somewhere close by or near this area. I don't think they would have gone too far. We haven't seen any signs of tracks on Djuma, so they must still be this side. Nothing has crossed over. Right, now as we make our way out and try and concentrate that we don't hit any stumps like we just did, let's go across to Stef and see how he's doing with his survival skills and his water survival techniques.
The swamp water is definitely repeating on me, making me retaste the swamp water every couple of seconds or so, which is fantastic. I can't say it's a taste I'm going to miss after breakfast, but nevertheless, is what it is. What you're looking at there now is an after effect of the good rains that we've had. It's a flower that's doing incredibly well at the moment, called the Evolvus alcinoides, or the blue haze. And it's not immediately apparent when you're walking through the bush or driving through the bush how common this little plant is, until you start to really look. And where it gets its name from, the blue haze flower, is because once you start looking, you just see it everywhere, almost like a haze in the grass. So just come and have a look here where we're standing, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Just have a look at this carpet of flowers that you can see in this particular place. It's just everywhere. These fields of this blue flower. And what is really incredible for me is the fact that where we're standing right now was bare, open, blasted sand a couple of months ago. Where were all the seeds? How deep below the soil do these seeds lie? That they don't get scoured away by the wind, that they don't get carried away on the bottom of animals' hooves. Just absolutely incredible. And it's not like these rootstock of these plants are very deep into the soil at all. That you can literally pull them out with 2 fingers and just a pinch. But they're everywhere. It's just nice to see. The blue haze flower, you can see it even from where we are now, through the bush like this. Bobby, in North Carolina, you've wanted to know, is there a plant that deters flies? And Bobby, you are lucky, there is the plant right here. This is the Osmum canum plant, and this is also known commonly as the wild basil. Why they call it wild when this is where it's supposed to be growing, it's not wild at all, I'm not too sure. But it's got this real basil-y smell, and you can either beat yourself about the face with it to, I've lost my earpiece, beat my earpiece out of my ear. You can either slap yourself, and it releases oils on your clothes, which is a fly deterrent. I wouldn't say it does much to the multitude of flies that we have here, but it definitely is used in pictures of old kitchens, especially in South African kitchens, these traditional kitchens. There's always these plants hanging upside down like this, drying above, in particular, meat preparation areas. That plant that was drying was this one. They'd collect it, tie it into bunches. It grows prolifically in this area, so me pulling out a few won't do anything to the species. They bunch it up like that, and they leave it above meat preparation areas to deter flies. But not only was it used for that, it was also used to preserve corpses. Of course, by traditional standards, African people in this particular area are only buried on a Saturday. So if you happen to pass away on a Sunday, you need to be kept until the Saturday. And with the lack of infrastructure here throughout the last sort of 100 years or so, refrigeration for corpses wasn't a very common thing. And so bodies were covered in this. So this was laid on top of the corpse, and this would keep the flies away. And any other pest, at least anyway. And although you're not going to stop the process of decomposition until the person was buried on the Saturday, at least what you'd do is you'd stop insects from infesting the corpse, which, you know, out here there's just no, the insect load is just so huge that it was really difficult. So this was in kitchens, used above meat preparation areas to keep flies away, and in traditional burial rites to keep corpses free from insects, or relatively free from insects. So this, I'm glad to show you, is absolutely useful. I'm going to keep some. I will use it in conjunction with my guari stick, and the reason why I have a guari stick is it allows me some more momentum to swat the flies, and you can see that the sticks are very whippy and the leaves don't come off. I can pretty much hammer this against the ground and it won't come off, but when you do it in conjunction with the osmum, it also smells nice, and I can waft this nice basil-y smell around me as well. Right, let's carry on. We are on our way sort of back to the camp in this direction. James, you just asked me, are there any flowers that I've seen in previous years but haven't seen in this season? That's a good question, James. Let me think. I'm not a flower aficionado as such, James, so it's going to take me a bit of time to think about a flower that I have seen in other years. I suppose my river crinums, river lilies. Also Scodoxus multiflorus comes to the flame lily, not the flame lily, the I can't even remember what it's a big ball of big red flowers. So the Scodoxus multiflorus we haven't seen at all this year, and then the river crinums I haven't seen any here this year. So big white flower, a beautiful flower. So that I've seen in wetter years. I haven't seen any of them this year. Louise just said an impala lily. I'm not too sure we get impala lilies here. There's the summer impala lily that grows, very, very localized group of highly endangered plants that grows not even 20 miles from here, in a very isolated group of plants, highly protected in the Kruger National Park. And there's a road that goes straight past this thicket. I haven't seen many of those flowering this year. I did see them flower last year in the drought, but not any this year. So yeah, James, there's a couple of flowers. I mean, those are just the ones off the top of my head, of course. So the Scodoxus multiflorus and the river crinums, any of the crinums. I haven't seen any of them this year. All right. Oh, it's been such a nice walk today. Laura, you've asked if any of the animals make use of these plants. Laura, I would argue that people have made use of these plants only because, watch out for this bush, it's got lots of thorns on. People have made use of these plants only because animals have been using these plants. Yes, animals will utilize, let's take the milkweed plant for instance. The milkweed plant has a lot of toxins in it. The butterfly larvae, caterpillars, would eat the milkweed plant. they are immune to the toxin, but they can store the toxins in their own body, and that toxin carries through the metamorphosis. So not only is the caterpillar toxic, and because it's toxic, it is inedible, so it's not preyed upon by birds and other insects, but also the adult, the butterfly, also is toxic. Other animals that do things like that would be, let me think. Off the top of my head, I can't actually think of any right at the moment. I know I must know more than that, Laura, but yeah, that's a prime example would be the milkweed. Oh, the grasshoppers, the locusts, of course. So the elegant grasshopper and the foaming grasshopper all feed on poisonous, toxic plants and become poisonous and toxic themselves. In terms of medicine, let's use the example that we showed once before in the Transvaal gardenia. I watched at the end of last year how elephant, at a point towards the end of the drought, started to feed on Transvaal gardenia. And at the time, I suggested, or hypothesized at least anyway, that because the Transvaal gardenia is such a, it promotes easy flow of the bowels, that the very fibrous, low moisture content vegetation that the elephants were feeding on was causing a bit of constipation. And the elephants started to feed at the end of the dry season, started to feed on the Transvaal gardenia, particularly their roots. They just push out down a whole tree and excavate the roots and start eating the roots, specifically to get this very fibrousy, low moisture content dung out of their bodies. There is an adolescent giant land snail. I just wanted to pick him up so that we didn't step on him while we were busy talking to you. All right, we're going to send you over to Taylor, who's got a bird in the road to show you.
We have these 3 that are hanging about here, and as we say that, off they go. They were being quite funny in the ground. I don't know if it was, it seemed to be the dynamics was a male, a female, and a youngster, which was quite funny to watch because the male every now and then kept pecking the young one, which was quite funny. And it was much smaller than the male too, so his beak almost went entirely over his back. But as you know, with birds, they never want to stick around for too long. There's always just a quick sighting of them, especially when they are on the road. No, that's alright. We're actually heading down to the Mulwanini, which I know is unfortunately not a great spot with the gremlins. So before we disappear, I'm going to send you across to Tristan for a quick update, and hopefully we'll find some better signal shortly.
Indeed, the Mulwanini has lots of gremlins lurking. You have to be careful when you go there. So Taylor, get out your stick and beat them as you go and stop those gremlins getting into Rusty. They've infected Jigger and Wendy, so we don't want them in Rusty too. Now, I've just spoken to one of the guides that operates south of us, and just trying to find out if they've had any signs of Karula and the 2 naughty royal cubs, and he says nothing. They have not seen a track or even found any tracks for them. So I think that they are somewhere on our side, and this afternoon I'm going to dedicate my afternoon to tracking the royal family. I think that's what I'm going to do this afternoon, because I'm sure that they are somewhere on our property. Just got to make sure. I know Stef had those alarm calls around Nyala South, so maybe the Mulawati is a good place to go and look this afternoon, check all those shady little spots. We also know that Hosana and Shongile like to sleep at some pans. They're always around watery areas, so check out all the little pans along the Mulawati and see. I know Taylor has been in that area, and Stef also I think went that way on foot, but we shall persevere and try again this afternoon. I'm surprised that we haven't picked up any signs of them. It's been quite a while. Costa in Canada, you want to know what is a leopard's favorite meal? Well, I think out here where we are currently is probably impalas. That's what they hunt the most out here. Also little duikers like Taylor had earlier. Those are high up on a leopard's favorite menu, but it depends on the leopard. Some leopards prefer different things. So I've seen some leopards that are really good at targeting warthogs. So some of the males really go after warthogs quite a lot, like Anderson. He's a good warthog hunter. He will obviously catch impalas and those things as well, but he likes those. Then Sillehesh, which is a leopard to our west, she really likes to go after cane rats. Now, if you're not sure what a cane rat is, it almost looks a bit beaverish in its kind of big brown rat about this size. It's quite furry, and you find them along the riverbanks, anywhere where you've got thickets, and they like to be in there. So she really likes to hunt those. I've seen her hunting them numerous times. So it depends on the individual. It's like us. We all have our own different favorite foods. Some people like pizza, some people like hamburgers, some people like very fancy food. So it just depends on the individual. But I would say the most common animal that they tend to go after, just because there's so many of them, is the impalas. Ooh, Molly, this is a tough one. You want to know which is my favorite leopard? It's difficult because I've got so many favorites that are no longer with us, that have passed away, unfortunately, and then there's also leopards in different parts of the reserve. But I would say male leopard, currently that is alive, I would toss up between Anderson and Mvula. Those are my two favorite males. And females would be Thandi and Tiani, with the two T's. Maybe I'm just prone to them because my name starts with a T, but Thandi and Tiani are my two favorites females. They are very, very pretty. Although I'm really starting to like Shongile. I like the way that Shongile is and the demeanor that she has, and she's also a very pretty leopard, got very nice eyes, so I also do like her. It's difficult. They are very likable characters, all of them, and so it becomes tough to pick a favorite. Down in the south of the Sabi Sands, when I was down at Lion Sands, my favorite female down there was the Warthog Wallow female, which is a very strange name for a leopard, but Warthog Wallow, and she's unfortunately, I believe, passed away, so she's no longer with us, but she was my favorite. And then there was the Scotia female. She was also an incredible leopard. Spent a lot of good times with her, and her daughter Nzilo was also very, very pretty. So, like as you can see, I have a problem with deciding who is actually my favorites. They've all got their own little unique things about them that make them interesting and make them always a treasure and a treat to be able to spend time with them to view. So alright, now that we've gone through all the leopards that I can possibly think of, let's go across to Stef and see where he is and what he's up to and whether or not he's got a favorite leopard in the area.
I do have a favorite leopard, I suppose. I don't see the leopards as often as what you do, in fact, or my colleagues do. But recently I would have to say that probably Shongile is my favorite leopard, only because she's so tolerant of us on foot, and it's allowed me to spend a magical afternoon with her a couple of weeks back. Watch out for that, it's grabby. A magical afternoon with her a couple of weeks back. And so she's pretty relaxed, yeah. In terms of male leopards, I've only really had anything to do with Mvula on foot. We've found him a couple of times on foot. I haven't really seen Tingana on foot. He doesn't like to be followed that much on foot. And I've never seen Anderson before. So I suppose Shongile, if I had to pick one leopard, Shongile would be it. Yes. And before him, it was probably Nkuhuma. I quite enjoyed him as a male leopard. He had a nice sort of sassy attitude. You couldn't just take chances with him. He'd let you know exactly when you were overstepping that boundary. So in total, I would say that my time here at Djuma, my favorite leopard has been Nkuhuma, with it followed secondly and increasingly shortening the distance between the two would be Shongile. And I know that Lou's just saying there's a whole bunch of you that agree with me on that one as well, which is good, I suppose. Let's carry on going over here. I'm trying to find we were in this area here the other day, and I found, just happened chance, I found the home of a trapdoor spider. Now in this particular area, we get two types of trapdoor spiders, the corky lid trapdoor spiders and the wafer lid trapdoor spiders. The wafer lid trapdoor spiders, fewer species, they're also more difficult to find. So the more common one out here is the corky lid trapdoor spider. Now, almost any open patch of ground like this has a trapdoor spider living in it, but it is really difficult to find. So what you've got to try and do is you've got to almost get down onto your hands and knees. Let's pick a place here with some sandy substrate. And you very carefully got to look for the entrance to these things. They like to build their webs where there's a little bit of soil that they can stick to the lid of the actual web. And there you can see some depressions there. No. So difficult to find. They are virtually invisible. And I haven't got the trick yet of finding it. There are some spider experts out here that absolutely can find these things, and I have yet to learn that skill. So bear with me, it might take a few years, but eventually I'll be able to find you a corky lid trapdoor spider at will. Alright, why don't we send you over to Taylor for the last couple of minutes of the show.
We're back on Djuma. We made it home safely, and now we're slowly starting our route until we get home eventually, which will take us some time. And I'm quite sad that we didn't get to bump into any elephants today. Maybe we'll be lucky this afternoon, seeing as though it's going to be another scorching one. We'll have to come and check some of my favorite pans along Ingwe Alley and perhaps Chele Pan. They're normally good ones, and that's where all the elephants seem to have been hanging around over the last few days. Another thing that they're also doing at the moment, and I feel I'm a little bit sad, all the maintenance teams, they normally have to work in between game drive hours, and I've just started seeing big piles being deposited all over the roads to start repairing all the big erosion that was caused from all the rain that we had. So that's quite nice. So David, no more bumpy roads hopefully the next few weeks, because it will take them quite some time to get all of this road network done. I'm wondering, I reckon we must have close to almost 200 kilometers of road network that we're able to drive on. If you had to add up every single road that an area that we can traverse on, I think we would get to about 200 kilometers, which is it's a fair amount of road to sort of navigate around on, especially when you've got a tractor or a big grading machine and you need to come and repair it. It's not an easy job. We actually repaired lots of roads in Zambia after the rains. That was quite interesting. We did it for a week, for 9 hours every single day. We'd go out as the sun rose and come back as the sun set again, and it was lots of fun. I learned a lot about handling big equipment, driving tractors around, the grading machines. It was quite spectacular. Right, let's have a look here. I thought we'd just quickly come past Chele Pan to see if there was anything here in the final moments of the show. But sadly, there is not anything around. Not even the Egyptian geese that normally live at this pan. Oh no, we'll have to get them this afternoon. I hope you all have enjoyed this wonderful morning out here. We've been quite spoiled with all the different things that we've seen. The sunrise this morning was my particular favorite. But remember, we'll see you this afternoon for the sunset safari, and a big thank you from all of us here at Wild Earth.